Good morning. So I am answering client emails. It's Monday morning. I've got my little helper here. This is her favorite spot. And say hello. And we're getting some work done, but I just wanted to jump on real quick because coaching moment here. I have a client that has been with me for a little bit and has gone through different phases of the physical transformation, but today is more about the emotional, which is definitely kind of my forte and something I really enjoy. So I made a post not too long ago that I give clients affirmations, and her affirmation last week was, I'm in control of my inner peace. And it resonated with her, and she was able to come to terms this weekend with some things that she had been dealing with for a while now and had kind of kept stuffing down. This was translating into her physical body as well, and we weren't really able to get that breakthrough, and it didn't really matter what the macros were, what the training program was, as long as she was dealing with this emotional baggage. There really wasn't that that forward movement is the best way to put it. And so I got an email today that says she was able to have a breakthrough this weekend and is ready to, kind of have a fresh start. And so I just want to encourage people that, there's so many tools that you can use that aren't just the typical, and even if they seem a little bit out there, the point is that you feed yourself with good thoughts and give yourself, control of your thoughts. And for her, it was just that kind of recognition that, if she wants to change something, she has to be the change. And so I think her having that affirmation, like, I am in control of my inner peace, was what she needed. So be encouraged today. If you need that same affirmation, write it down, put it in your planner, put it on your mirror, put it in your car, put it on your desk. So this week, I am in control of my inner peace. Kind of on the struggle bus, but I am headed into the gym. I've got legs today. I've got my green apple Beauty Strong, which I love because it's not like overly stimulating, but it's just enough to get me going. And so I have got some hack squats on deck. I've got leg press, barbell thrusters, some lying leg curls, leg extensions, and then I am also hitting some rear delts. Actually, this program I just started last week, and I am training 4 days a week and 4 days of post lift, just some steady state cardio for 25 minutes. And the purpose in that is I'm trying to bring down the stress response in my body, turn on the parasympathetic after training before I go and eat, which today I'm actually meeting hubby at Core Life Eatery. So that's incentive to get a good workout in. And yeah, I think that's it. So I'm gonna head in and kill some legs.
All right, so first exercise up here, this is gonna be more of a quad emphasis day, is a hack squat. So what you wanna focus on, obviously if your focus is quad emphasis here, is knee flexion. So you can see as she's going down, the knee is breaking and traveling forward over, basically towards the big toe. So making sure that that shin doesn't stay vertical and that knee tracks forward, because the more knee flexion you get, the more it's going to emphasize the quads. And I know a lot of people will do these and tend to put their feet higher because they're typically stronger in that position. But if you have the ankle mobility, the lower you can place your feet and the more knee flexion you're getting, the more you're going to activate your quads. Okay, another thing on your warm-up sets or your feeder sets is to not expend a ton of energy. You're just doing this to get good muscle-mind connection, getting those muscle fibers, targeted muscle fibers to fire optimally, but not expend a ton of energy. You want to save that for your true working sets. So like Nicole's going to be doing 10 to 12 reps on her sets, but for her feeder sets, she's going to stay around, you know, the 5 rep range, 6 rep range, just getting those muscles turned on. So here you want to think about from the top position is basically that you're having to pull yourself down because you're trying to contract your rectum, your VMO, your vastus lateralis, everything as hard as you can the whole time, not releasing tension at any one point. Okay, so here on her first set, you know, one thing as well is, unless it's written into your plans, try to remain in a constant tempo, constant tension. What you'll see with most people is they'll want to pause at the top of every single rep. So a thing you want to make sure is, unless it's a rest pause set or unless you're hitting that really hard force decrement to where your tempo just drastically drops, keep the tension moving, no pausing at any point. So constantly you're trying to contract and flex the muscle on the eccentric and the concentric, never releasing tension. And that's one thing that people have an issue with. They just move from point A to point B and not consciously thinking about contracting the muscle, the entire range of motion. So no pauses unless you absolutely have to. Get that tension in there. Because remember, it's time under tension. Pausing at the top every single rep you do is basically like doing repeated singles.
We let the story begin. We're going out on our first date. You and me is thrifty, so go all you can eat. Fill up your bag and fill up the plate. We talk for hours and hours about sweet and the sour and how your family's doing okay. And leaving, get in the taxi, kissing the backseat, tell the driver make the radio play. And singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead.
All right, so next up is the leg press. And again, we're focusing on quads here, not hams or glutes. So again, you want to focus and put your feet lower on the platform. Now again, ankle mobility is going to dictate how low you can actually put them. But again, we're looking for knee flexion here. So again, cues here is to keep your butt pinned down to that pad. So pull yourself down, keep that pelvis stable by keeping your lower back neutral and abs tense. And you're going to work within the range that's active for you. You know, you don't want to come down so deep to where you're rolling that lower back and your butt's coming up off the pad, because all you're doing is putting shearing force on the lower lumbar. So again, you're pushing into the platform for your quads, but think also push in and up the platform. Constant tension, never locking out at the top, always trying to contract that muscle. So just taking your time with these, working your active range. For some people, it's going to be a lot shorter than others, depending on their hip mobility, their ankle mobility. Drive up a little more explosively, but stay tight. There you go. Okay, so what we're going to go now to is barbell hip extensions. Now, let's talk here a little bit about execution, because if you're truly trying to just make this a primary glute emphasis movement and not bring the quads, the hams, and everything into position, you want to make sure that, number one, as you can see here from Nicole, is have that basically perfect right angle here from the knee. So basically what you're trying to look at is keeping the shin as vertical as you can. You're going to go down, and as soon as that knee starts to shift back, the emphasis is going to shift from the glutes more into the hamstrings, even the quads a little bit. So to keep primary mover as the glutes, you're making sure those shins are staying pretty much vertical the whole time. So the range of motion is only going to be about maybe 5 inches, 6, depending on someone's structure and how they're built. The other cue is to make sure that you're keeping that lower back, pelvis in a neutral position, even in a slight posterior tilt the whole time. Because most people, as they go down, they're going to tend to extend the lower back and do a hyperextension instead of hinging at the hips and keeping their torso in a straight line from the hip to the shoulder. So remember, getting your setup, make sure your upper back is basically around mid-scapula, roughly, not the lower part. And again, before you even start, you want that hip in a neutral position, so pull into a slight posterior tilt, abs are braced, and then you're hinging at the hip. Let them drop, and the entire time you're trying to contract the glutes. You're not just dropping and relaxing the glute and then just flexing it at the top. You're trying to contract them the whole range of motion, and many people miss this cue and they just get that peak contraction at the top thinking they're training their glutes when they're losing tension in the bottom. So again, abs braced, low back neutral, slight posterior tilt in the pelvis, and don't allow the knees to drop back slightly. All right, so what we're going to focus here is single leg curls. So you're cueing here, you're going to think about, again, always keeping the low back neutral, keeping your abs tense and braced, and keeping a slight tension in your glutes. So what you want to do here as you're curling the weight up is think about basically pushing your hips into the pad and then also pushing your quads down into the pad. That's going to help stabilize the pelvis and let the hamstrings just do the work. Because a lot of people kind of do the butt hump when they do in this movement. For the most part, as they curl, their butt shoots up in the air, and then obviously they're compensating there and the hamstring isn't doing most of the work. So abs are braced, pushing the pelvis into the pad, and then flexing on the way up, keeping that constant tension. And then I like these as a single leg variation as well, especially to learn to get that mind muscle connection and to learn to keep the pelvis stable. So again, hard contraction at the top of every rep, controlling that tension and not releasing at any point. Okay, last thing we're going to do here is the leg extension. So basic leg extension, but this movement is still kind of performed inaccurately. The issue I see with a lot of people is, number one, is their butt tends to come up off the bench. So again, you want to stabilize the pelvis as much as possible if you're trying to isolate the quads. So the handles are there for a purpose, so pull yourself down into position. I actually like a slight abdominal crunch if you're truly trying to activate the rect fem, but if not, still just keep the pelvis nice and stable. So pull yourself down into the pad and then contract on the way up. Don't throw it up. So another thing that I see done wrong is people will be extremely explosive out of the bottom position. The problem with that is the profile of the machine is it's going to be a lot easier at the bottom where you're strong and then harder at the top. So the problem with that is you're going to create a lot of momentum if you're being explosive out of the bottom position. So The cueing that I like is initiate with a contraction a little bit slower, then about midway up, then you're going to be pushing more explosively into the contracted position. So make sure that the initiation out of the movement is a little slower and then a little bit more explosive on your intent halfway up where it's harder. Because remember, the muscle is weakest in its shortened position. The other thing to watch and to make sure you're doing, a lot of people just don't really pay attention to this simple cue, is to make sure that your knee aligns with the pivot point of the machine. Because that in and of itself, if it's misaligned, is going to cause a lot of stress on the patella. So that simple little thing there will make a world of difference. So again, make sure you're nice and stable in the machine. It's a nice controlled initiation out of the bottom. The initiation should be trying to contract the muscle and not just get it to the contracted position. You're trying to have that tension through the whole range of motion. So about midway up, then you're going to be a little bit more explosive, hard contraction, and then control it down. So everything's nice and stable, hard contraction at the top.
Waiting for you to give me some kind of reason. Are you even listening? Am I talking to myself again? And I know you don't owe me your love, and I know that you don't owe me nothing at all. Ain't no way I'm giving up on you. Don't leave me here in the dark where it's hard to see. Show me your heart, shed a light on me. If you love me, say so. If you love me.
We're here at Core Light Eatery. This is my post-workout. There we go. Not doing very good with the camera. Gotta put it on the gram.